Let's talk about the economy to start with, should we? Today, as was being pointed out, the Bank of England saying that we're going to be in recession before the end of the year, and that's going to last until 2024. People watching at home, and I'm guessing some people here as well, facing months and months of hardship. You've been their Chancellor for the last 2 years. Why on earth should they trust you with the keys of number 10?
In fact, because they've seen me as Chancellor over the last couple of years, and I think, actually, Kay, probably the first time people really saw me was that first press conference when there was an enormous amount of anxiety in the country about what was going to happen to people's jobs, their livelihoods, their businesses, and they didn't really know who I was. I'd just been made Chancellor a couple of weeks before. But I stepped up at that moment to act boldly and radically, to design things that had never been done before in this country, like furlough, that ended up protecting over 10 million jobs, saved over 1 million businesses, helped families get through what are 2 very difficult years, and for our economy to emerge at the end of that in far more resilient shape than anyone had anticipated at the beginning. And when I go around the country, people know that that's what I did for them. They're grateful for it, and that's what I want to do as Prime Minister, because right now we face similarly large economic challenges, and it's particularly because of my experience that I'm well placed to deal with them.
Nothing you can do about recession, though, is there? Or is there?
Of course there is. Of course there is. Back to David's question, the number one thing we have to do is not make the situation worse. What is causing the recession? Right? As you heard from the Bank of England today, and I think Liz said something before, which I'm just going to correct, it's not the tax burden that is causing the recession. That's simply wrong. What's causing the recession is inflation. Right? That's the root of the problems we have, not just here, but in America and elsewhere. So the way we're going to get through this, first and foremost, is gripping inflation. Now, we will, and I always have stood by people, as you've seen me over the last couple of years, so I will help people get through the autumn and the winter, as I've done before, and then we will make the right reforms to help grow the economy in the long term. And I don't think the corporate tax proposals...
So you would come up with more money to help people get through the hardship?
Of course I would.
Do you know how much?
Well, we'll have to see the size of the problem. But look, people can see
13.3% inflation is what's predicted. That's the size of the problem.
And I don't want that to be worse. And I don't want it to last longer. So what I'm not going to do is embark on a borrowing spree worth tens of billions of pounds, put that on the country's credit card, ask our kids and our grandkids to pick up the tab, because that's not right, it's not responsible, and it's certainly not conservative.
But you're promising tax cuts without knowing where inflation will be.
I'm the one that's not sitting here now, promising tens of billions of pounds of unfunded tax cuts.
What you've actually said is no tax cuts until inflation gets under control. What amounts to under control?
When it's on a clearly downward trajectory and we have good line of sight that it is returning back to target, right?
OK.
Right. But that's why we need to be really careful about policies that will make that worse. Right, and look, if that's to the first question, it was, I'm behind in this race.
No, I'm just a bit confused. So you're saying these income tax cuts might not happen? It depends.
You're talking about my longer-term plan?
Yes, of course I am.
Yeah, my longer-term plan, I'm confident we can deliver it, yes, right? And that was the reason I published that longer-term plan. And that longer-term plan, for those watching, was to, over time, reduce income tax rates in this country, because I believe really strongly in rewarding hard work. Hard work is a value that I think is really important. I think most Conservatives share that view, that hard work is something that should be rewarded. The best way to do that through the tax system is to reduce the rate of income tax. And I wanted to give people a sense of the direction of where I wanted to take the country and the economy. And I want to build an economy where we cut the rates of income tax over time. And we're going to do that not by asking our kids to pick up the bill. We're going to do it by being disciplined on public spending, reforming public services,
where you're very comfortable
and growing
we know
the economy.
Exactly what you think. What we don't probably know about is foreign affairs as much. So let me ask you about energy and food bills and how that relates to foreign affairs potentially. How high do you think that energy and food bills will have to go before we reassess our support for Ukraine?
No, I don't think that's how we're going to look at it, actually, because we can make an enormous difference between now and actually next winter in reducing our dependence on Russian energy. So in the short term, of course, we're going to step in, and I want to step in and help people more. I announced enormous support as Chancellor. As Prime Minister, I'll go further because the situation has deteriorated. But what I'm looking to is, by next winter, that we've got through this. And there's lots of things we can do to help us do that. So I'll give a couple of examples, right? So one thing we can do is improve our energy storage, because actually we can import lots of gas in the middle of the year.
That takes time, though, doesn't it?
No, we can do that relatively quickly, improved energy storage during the middle of the year. But the other thing we can do is energy efficiency. Now, many of you here, many people watching, are living in homes where we can help improve the insulation. loft insulation, cavity wall insulation, smart temperature controls. Those are relatively small-scale interventions that don't take very long or cost a fortune, and government has got money. But if we turbocharge that programme, we can not only reduce our demand for energy, which improves our energy security, we can also save people up to £300 on their bills. Now, that's the type of thing that we should be doing.
So we can continue to support Ukraine as long as we lag our loft, is that what you're saying?
We need to be lagging our loft anyway for climate change reasons, right? Because it's good to reduce our long-term demand on energy, right? But what we do want to do is make sure we help people with their bills, and that's a good practical example of something we can do.
On the conflict in Ukraine, Boris Johnson has really thrown himself into the cause. I think everybody might agree with that. He's regarded as a hero, apparently, in Ukraine. That's what he tells us. He brandishes his missile launchers. We've seen that. Are you really tough enough to stand up to Vladimir Putin?
Well, just think for a moment. How are we currently standing up?
This is your hell yeah moment.
Yeah. So how are we standing up to Vladimir Putin? Right? How are we actually doing it? We're doing two things. Right? We're sending arms and money to Ukraine, which, as we talked about earlier, I found from elsewhere in government spending so that we could free up that money to send to President Zelensky. But what's the other way we're weakening Russia? We're doing it through economic sanctions, right? We're not sending our troops into Russia, right? It's not diplomatic measures that are making a difference, it's economic. What are we doing? We're targeting his companies, their access to global capital markets, his gold trading, his central bank reserves. That's how we're economically turning the screw on Russia. Who do you think put all those things together? I did with all my finance minister colleagues around the world, working with the Treasury Secretary in America, working with European finance ministers. We designed an international package of economic sanctions that sends a very strong message that we will not stand for his aggression. It's the most stringent set of economic sanctions the world has ever seen, and it is making a difference. And as Prime Minister, I will go further because there's more things we can do. So, yes, I'm tough enough, and I'm already delivering the measures that are actually causing him the most trouble. Thank you.
Ben Wallace, as I mentioned before, said that you had to be overruled on defence spending. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, reportedly said that you objected to the Rwanda plan during a written discussion between the departments. Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, former Northern Ireland Secretary, has accused you of putting up huge resistance on efforts to override the Northern Ireland Protocol. It looks as though there's a recurring theme there, doesn't there? You say one thing in private and then you say something else for voter consumption. So should we believe them or should we believe you?
Well, look, when it comes to the Rwanda plan, I do believe in the Rwanda policy, but do I ask tough questions when cabinet ministers come to me and say, oh, look, we like to do this new thing? Yeah, because my job is to make sure that yours and everyone else watching and everyone in this audience's money is spent properly. That's part of my job. I wouldn't be doing my job properly if every time some cabinet minister came to me and said, oh, please, can I have X billion pounds to do this new thing? I don't say, whoa, hang on, let me just check that this actually is going to work. Is it worth us spending taxpayers' money on it?
So you think spending £120 million on sending 200 people to Rwanda is good value for money?
Yeah, well, it's a pilot, right? So the pilot bit is expensive. So you're asking now exactly the questions I was asking. So if Priti Patel or anyone else is going to say, oh, now I expressed some doubts about it, it was doubts about how we're going to make the policy work. I believe in the policy, but it's not good enough in government to just announce things. Okay. It's not good enough to put out a press release. What you need to do is deliver things. And I think what people saw from me during the pandemic as Chancellor, that I could deliver things. I actually delivered policies that worked and made a difference, which, by the way, were done in record time and were radical. And I will bring that same sense of grip and urgency and competence to all these other challenges, whether it's the Rwanda policy, whether it's the NHS backlogs.
OK, let's talk about climate. You brought it up. We're trying to whiz through these topics as best we can because, obviously, some of these people have not got their ballot papers yet, some have, and what you're telling them, both here in the studio and at home this evening, could make the difference as to whether or not you are the next Prime Minister of this country. So let's talk about the climate, should we? One issue that affects not just our finances, but, of course, our future, is your green credentials. Can I test them?
Sure.
Here we go. New coal mines, yes or no?
They're local decisions, but I don't think we should be importing coal from other places if we have it at home. OK. What about fracking? Where it has the support of local communities, I'm in favour of it. OK,
but we have seen some big issues with fracking, haven't we, particularly in my part of the world, in the northwest of England, where we've seen at least 3 earthquakes that apparently have been caused by fracking.
Yeah, but we also, as I said, most importantly, it has to be done with the support of local communities. But we do also have a study from, I think 3 different royal societies. I think of geologists and engineers and I can't remember the third group, but it's online somewhere, all of whom said that they believe fracking is safe and the seismic activity is not out of the ordinary. They're all the scientists who have came to that conclusion, not me. But as I said, I'm supportive of it where we can bring the local community along with us, because if we can get it to work, it's good for our long-term energy security.
Would you raise flight taxes?
Would I raise?
Flight taxes?
No.
Why not?
Because as Chancellor, I already made a change to airline taxation.
You did. Not very green, though, was it?
Yes, it was, actually, because I did 2 things. One is I reversed a European rule that forced us to charge people twice when they flew inside of the United Kingdom on air passenger duty. I didn't think that was right, and after we left the EU, we could say we're not going to do that anymore. If you fly around the UK, because we believe in a United Kingdom, you should only be taxed once. But at the same time, I created a new band. For the longest haul flights, the most polluting flights, we created a brand new band with a higher level of tax. So actually it was balanced, right? So for the people who are flying the farthest with the more emissions, they were going to pay more. For people flying within the United Kingdom, we took an advantage of Brexit and cut taxes there.
Let me ask you about onshore wind, yes or no, because I'm a bit confused on this one. Offshore wind, onshore wind, forgive me, yes or no?
No.
OK, you've changed your mind?
No, I haven't. Last night I was asked a question, I didn't fully understand it and I misspoke, but my position on that is the same as it's been. OK,
how are we going to get to net zero by 2050? With
innovation.
Yeah.
Right? And the type of future economy that I want to create is one where this, and we talked about it in the answer to the visas question from someone.
OK.
If we have an economy where this is the best place in the world for people to create, invent, discover new things, we will get there. And we will get there in a way that lowers people's bills. Now, look, my business background, my experience means I know how to build that type of economy in this country.
We've got to rush through this. It's like running
that
for a bus.
was important on net zero.
Yep,
but
quick fire.
There's an enormous opportunity
quick fire questions
there.
Here, if you don't mind. Quick fire questions. Here we go. Do you personally support the 24-week limit on abortion?
As a personal thing, yes. I mean, these are personal decisions. They're not government decisions. I don't think there's any need to change I believe in a woman's right to choose. I don't think there's any reason to change the laws that we have.
Why have you abstained on every major vote on abortion?
Probably because I've not been in Parliament on the day.
You didn't think it was important enough to be there?
Because as Chancellor, I'm often travelling.
2015, apparently. Were you Chancellor in 2015?
No, but I mean, these are not free. I mean, I completely agree with our current system of abortion. I don't think it should be changed. So if so that's my general view. That's always been my view.
You just haven't been there when the votes have been taking place. Would you fist bump the Saudi leader Mohammed bin Salman as Joe Biden did?
I'm probably not a fist-bumping type of person, I think, probably.
Would you shake his hand, then?
I mean, yes, I would shake his hand. I think you do have to engage with people around the world. I don't think... and they're a country that we have a relationship with.
In a video, here it comes, from 2001, you said you didn't have any working-class friends. Have you made any working-class friends since you left university?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a student when I said that. We all say silly things when we're younger. I mean, at the same time, I was, as you know, I was working in my mum's shop. I was out and about, cycling around, running around, delivering medicines to people, all people from all walks of life. But, obviously I was a kid and I said something silly.
So you do have working-class friends now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't go around asking them what how they define themselves. So, I mean, I'd rather think we've kind of moved... I think we've moved beyond that as a country, actually.
How reassuring.
Yeah, I think people are less interested in where you've come from, people are interested in where you're going. And that's the kind of country I want to build, right? Thank you, yeah. Right.
Let me ask you the same question that I asked Liz Truss about being Prime Minister being the most invasive, exposed period in any politician's life. Anything you want to tell us about?
No. I mean, look, I've had a relatively high-profile job for 2 years, and I think people have seen me in action, and they've seen, what I can do, they've seen... And look, much of my personal life has also been talked about earlier this year, and that was an experience that I took, that I learnt from and dealt with. So, yes, I'm used to the scrutiny.
Okay. Another simple question. Have you ever benefited financially from the use of tax havens?
No.
A venture capital firm you co-founded, Tellman Partners, was registered in the Cayman Islands. So just to clarify...
I personally have absolutely never ever benefited and have paid absolutely full, normal taxes wherever I've lived.
Did you set up that business?
No.
OK. So you weren't a co-founder in 2009?
Not of the bit in the Cayman Islands that you're referring to. I have nothing to do with.
OK.
I mean, I happen to work with a company that has multiple offices all around the world, but that's not my responsibility. It was not running the company or setting that up.
So you weren't in any way paid by that offshore company? No connections with it?
When I was living in America, I paid all my taxes
whatsoever?
in America, and when I've lived in the UK, I've paid all my taxes in the UK. As completely as anyone else would.
OK, the reason I'm asking is that, as you know, as all our audience know, you've had to clarify your wife's non-dom status. You held permanent residency in the United States while you were setting the taxes of British voters, which is what a green card means. You're building a swimming pool at your constituency home while the public pool in Richmond is facing closure after a 400% energy hike. This has all led to a perception problem for you. People feel that you can't walk a mile in their shoes because you're walking in your Prada shoes. What would you say to them?
Look, over the past couple of weeks, right, I've been out and about across the country talking to members of the public. And as I was saying, lots of people have come to talk to me about that press conference and furlough and what difference it made to their lives. Do you know, I was wearing the same suit in that press conference, the same shoes as that I'm wearing now, right? I'm the same person.
How much were they worth?
Yeah,
They're very slick.
I'm exactly the same person, right? I'm the same person that stood there and made sure that we helped the country through a very difficult time. And that's what I'll do as Prime Minister. And I think the British people judge people by their character and by their actions, not by their bank account. Thank you.
That certainly seems to be the case as far as the audience is concerned here, but there's plenty of people who are watching at home who would disagree with that. Perception is reality, and they think that you're too rich to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, the reality is one of the last things I did as Chancellor was announce significant help for people with their energy bills this autumn and winter. And to the question we had at the front, from David, I think it was, right? David's question was about helping the most vulnerable, right? People who really needed help. That's what I did. Because, look, we're all going to have a difficult time and inflation makes everyone poorer, and that's why I'm so concerned about policies that will make it worse and last longer, and that's not right. But when we do need to help people this autumn and winter, our focus should be on the people who most need our help. And actually, when Liz is sitting here saying she's going to scrap the NHS levy, do you know who that benefits? That benefits the top 15% of earners. Right? That's what that policy does. It's not going to help the people that David was asking about with the cost of living this winter. Right? The policies I announced as Chancellor are targeted on those people because they are the people that need our help. Right? It's going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough for lots of people. And much as I want to support them to work hard and do those things, right, it's going to be just impossible for some people, and we need to help them, and that's what I did.
You can't do all of that on your own. Penny Mordaunt has backed Ms Truss. Ben Wallace has backed Ms Truss. Nadeem Zahawi has backed Ms Truss. Tom Tugendhat has backed Liz Truss. Sajid Javid, your old boss, has backed Ms Truss. Why are so many people supporting her rather than you?
Right, but Kay, it goes back to the question right at the beginning. Every stage of the parliamentary process, I had the broadest and biggest number of support.
But these are the people that have worked most closely with you, and they've decided that they prefer her.
No, well, hang on. Most MPs in Parliament, and all MPs work together in lots of different guises.
These people work around the cabinet table with you day in, day out, and they said, you know what,
actually, Tom Tugendhat and Penny Mordaunt are not in the cabinet, actually. But every single round of the parliamentary process,
would they be in your cabinet?
I led. Right? I was the person that MPs chose every round ahead of everyone else. And since it finished, more and more people have come and joined the team. So I'm really humbled by that, and I'm delighted. And actually, as we were answering a question, that support is drawn really widely from across the parliamentary party. And I'm not going to get into who's going to have this job and that job. I've got a contest that I want to try and win. I want to be out and about talking to all of you about my ideas for the future. But I will build a team that reflects all the talent and traditions of our party, as I said. You saw a lot of that on display in this leadership contest. And as we talked about before, we're all one team. We're all one family. We're going to come together after this. We're going to serve the British people, and then we're going to take it to Keir Starmer and win the next election, because that's the real prize.
Final thought: when you look at yourself in the mirror at night just before you go to bed, and you think, all these people that have sat around the cabinet table with me, and now they don't want to work with me. They think that the other candidate's better.
But plenty of people sat around the cabinet table also support me. Right, Dominic Raab, the Deputy Prime Minister, is out there right now. talking about it, and lots of others. But I also, as I said, now answer to the question.
Just him.
Right.
Is
I think we only just have one person, right? Yeah. Much as we love you and we love Sky, I think that's where we tolerate just one person giving up their evening to come and talk to you later. But I've been really humbled.
Not sure how to take that, actually.
Well, you know what? I think
that's
people.
a perfect place to end. It's lovely to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Very nice to see you. Thanks very much.